you?
I'm good. How are you?
Amazing. Congratulations on 1,000 things. I'm like, oh my God, it's been forever.
It has been forever. It's been busy as all hell. How have you been?
Yeah, you guys are like adults, full-blown adults.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know you like, so wait, you're in Cincinnati now?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
I am the queen of the Midwest. I've taken on the honor.
Yeah, I moved back to Texas. If you told me that 10 years ago, I would have punched you in the face. Here we are.
So how do you like being in Texas? How different is it? Why did you move back to Texas? Let's get into that.
Oh God. Okay, here we go. No, it was well, this thing happened where the world shut down. No, it was just I realized when I left ESPN, I was like, living in LA, I just bought a new house and I was like, didn't want to be there anymore. Soon realized I didn't have to be there anymore. It was when I came home for Christmas. Like after Leroy the pug died, I was like, I'm going home for a while. And I honestly never really, I put it on the market from here and went back and packed up and bought a house here. I was like, why am I not just living here? My best friends are here. My parents are here and they're getting older. And like, I reconnected with a guy I dated 20 years ago and now we're together. Like it's a whole thing.
What?
I know. It's very weird. It's just, I say it's peaceful as though I'm fighting with homeowners associations. I've never had one.
I love a good HOA battle. Bring it, bitches.
Oh my God. I just went outside. That's why I was 2 minutes late. I went outside with my camera phone thingy just because there's a Jeep sitting there and I'm like, are you taking pictures of and I snapped the picture of the license plate and it like took off and Marty just went after them. I was like, this is going to end badly. I just know it is.
Oh my God. Where we live now, we don't have an HOA. Thank God. Cause honestly, like when we lived in Vegas, if our palm trees got like a little bit long, they were on us every time. Where now we've had our laundry machine sitting outside of our house for about 3 weeks. And
like we're going to extreme opposite. That's the thing. Like you would think I have like chickens running around the front yard and like cars without wheels. I'm like, I'm trying to add pretty plants. Leave me alone.
Let a woman live.
I laugh.
It's such a different lifestyle though. Like getting out of LA, getting out of New York, not feeling that you have to be bound to one of those cities anymore. What a relief.
Yeah, it's weird. I miss certain things. I miss the vast array of food delivery options in both cities. I'll always miss New York. And if I had to move back to New York tomorrow, I'd be totally okay with it. Because I love the vibe. But yeah, it's weird. I thought I was never a party person or a super social person. So I don't miss any of that stuff. Like I never really partook in it in the first place. And this has been just chill. I like knowing that my two best friends are here. And if we want to have wine, they'll, come over, we'll have wine. And I haven't had that. I haven't lived in the same city as them for 22 years. So it's kind of nice.
It's funny. I guess it's like that hindsight is 2020 kind of situation. Cause I feel like that now here in Cincinnati and like Vegas is its own weird little like hustle and bustle that we also never really partook in. But I was like, I kind of want to get out of here. This isn't our vibe. It's weird. But now just being in like a regular city, I don't know if it just reminds me of Ontario or like there's a Canadianness to it that I like. And that I've got to go out and do so many things. It's nice to kind of pare it back and just go back to the basic shit.
I think that's exactly why I'm at peace, because had I not gone and lived my life and, this would be, I would not be happy.
You'd be trying to claw your way out.
100%. It's I did it. I did rat racy stuff. And now I'm just like doing, do what you want. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's like, you're not competing with a bunch of a-holes for, the one job you think exists in the world. It's like,
what a dream.
So is his family there? Like why Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So John's from here. His mom's here. His dad's in Dayton.
Perfect.
His grandmother's here. So it's really cool that we have our daughter who can like hang out with her great grandmother and her grandmother. And it's a drive to Toronto. So it's so nice. There's parks to walk to. There's like, as much as it can be just like kid friendly. I'm like, oh my God, like living in Vegas is like living in the devil's asshole. Like you just can't breathe.
I wouldn't be able to do it. Well, I wouldn't be able to do it. I think I would, I don't know. I love rough. Vegas and it's fun, but like, it's tough.
I don't even love it. Like there's even like the fun parts of it to me. I'm like, I don't really want, it's too hot.
You can't gamble every day. Yeah. You'll die. You'll die.
I don't gamble. I mean, I guess if you want to smoke a cigarette inside, that's a bonus. You can always do that.
Big win. Big win. All the
Big
reason to
W.
go.
So it is really nice to kind of like pare things down and get back to basics and
Look at us.
just live a life. Okay, let's get into this love life situation. A
it's
guy you
tomorrow.
dated 20 years ago,
Mhm.
you guys have reconnected and you're back together. How did this happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I went with my friends and we went and we ran into him and then we all sort of met up at a bar and I remember like after we hung out and like we just talked for hours and hours and hours and I remember texting my two best friends and I was like, am I a dumbass if I hang out with Marty again? And they were just like, no, friends are stupid. Like they're just, yeah, my God, it's so great. But yeah, it has really just been, there's something to be said for sort of like, we were in our 20s. He was an asshole. He cheated, but I was also an idiot because I was 20. And like, I've gone and lived my life and done things and we're different people.
Yeah.
And it's lovely. Like, it's just very, I don't worry about anything, which is, I've never been a big relationship person. And so that's never been something I've been good at. But this feels pretty easy. Once you kind of relearn each other, like we have to, I don't know how to fight, to be honest with you. I'm the person that's
I
like,
do. Bring
oh,
it. Let's
God.
go.
Well, I'm bad at it. I go immediately for the jugular and
Me
then nothing
too.
gets done. So it's like, that's not a good fight.
Oh my God. I know. I'm totally the same. I try to be better at that. Poor John's like, can you just back up for a second? Like, knives are out. Let's go.
And then you realize, like, I don't even remember what the original fight was about.
Why am I
Nothing.
Why am I mad? Okay, so you guys are together. It's been he's aged well, I would assume. I mean,
Yeah.
You saw him and you were like, let's go, Marty.
Yeah, it was weird. It was just like, I don't know, like no time had passed except for like an entire lifetime had passed. It was one of those things, like, which was weird because I'm obviously, I left for a long, long time and like lived a weird, like 7 different lives. So
yeah,
I obviously am way different than what I was just, we were waiters together. Like, nope, that's it. Okay. I'm dying because he just chased down the car and got the license plate.
Someone has to.
I don't know if this is how you're supposed to do homeowners association.
Hey,
put it in a restraining order.
Just put it on. Do you guys use that neighborhood app?
Then we have Nextdoor. It seems to be,
Or Nextdoor, yes.
When I say I've tried that, but people here's my pet peeve with that. I write this entirely beautifully well-constructed essay about not bitching, right? Like, just here's what I've gone through. I want to know if everyone else has gone through, because I want to know if it's like an anomaly or if this is the norm for how this business runs itself. And you get like grown people going like, well, I just spent 20 minutes writing this beautiful essay.
I didn't come here for the hearts.
Right?
I was conversation.
Like, don't make me track you down and ask you if you have had the same. I don't care about the like. I need to know. I'm trying to unionize. Like, come on.
I'm trying to stockpile information here.
I'm going to go door to door, the flyers.
Yeah. Here's a survey. Please fill this out.
I don't know. But it's the irony is it's Texas who claims to be free and blah, blah, blah. And I came from California, which they here think is like communist. And I like never had anyone bother me about my house there for 7 years. It's like, oh, come on.
How often do you get to wear all these shoes behind you? You put
Never.
any of these on? Never.
I could probably pick up 99% of them and there's not a scuff mark to be seen, but like, it's been, it's a years long, dare I say decades long, actually, collection. And there was a time where I had to be dressed up on like a set or a whatever. And it seems like a lifetime ago, but yeah. And then COVID happened and I maybe have worn 1 pair of heels in the last 3 years. Maybe.
I put on heels recently and I was like, first of all, who the do I think I am? Isn't it funny when you remove yourself from a situation, like, especially from like the WWE world for me, where it's like tassels and sequins and high heels and strip lashes and all of the things, to then just being like, I'm just in sweats. I'm in like my Lululemon pants all day, every day. That when I look at my closet and the things that are in there, I'm like, who was this girl?
Right?
Where
like I could purge
go?
A lot more.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to wear any of it unless something happens where we age backwards and get 40 years added to our lives. Like, I'm never going to wear this stuff ever.
Hey, who knows?
But who knows?
So what have you been up to? What has your time off been like? I mean, you're back, you've got your podcast, you're with The Athletic, which is great. And we'll get into that stuff. Before that though, having this downtime, what was that like for you? What were you doing? Where were you? Because I missed you. And I mean this in a very uncreepy way. I feel like I thought about you a lot where I'm like, where is Beadle?
Is she dead?
Because you weren't ever on my Twitter timeline. I
No.
never really saw you on Instagram. And I was like, where is Beadle? What has she been up to? And now you're back.
Yeah, it was cathartic. Like originally when I left, I was like, I'm going to travel. So I traveled, went to a few places by myself and was like, I loved it. I did not realize once you sort of break the seal of traveling by yourself, like overseas or whatnot, there's no going back, because it's like, if I wait for my friend, I'm not going to go anywhere. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go. And I loved it so much. And my intention was to do that for like a while. And then obviously everything sort of shut down, and I went back home and kept sort of family that I could keep around as long as possible. And like, I just lived. Once I sort of removed myself from social media, which I do highly recommend, like, it was cleansing because you didn't care. I didn't need to know. I was like, anyone who needs to tell me anything, they'll just text me. So like, I'm good. And a few days would go by and I didn't miss it. And then weeks. And then next thing I know, it's like months have gone by and I'm like, oh crap, that was nice. And so I just sort of, I gardened, which I've done here. Like turns out I love gardening.
Listen, I'm going to be texting you for real. Cause I'm about to take a deep dive. I'm about to.
Dude, I just was outside pruning tomato plants, as most hot, sexy women do. And like, it's satisfying when you put a seed in the ground and next thing you know, you're eating a tomato. You're like, oh my God, I
like using my hands. I want to get dirty. I want to I really want to roll up my sleeves and get into that. So
like being in the sun.
I'm going to be hitting you up.
Maybe
this is our new show.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what we do.
What do we call gardening with? What's a good, I always go alliteration first, but maybe.
Gardening with the girls.
Oh, there you go. Boom, done. Yeah, we're gonna garden with the girls. Yeah, I think you're gonna love it. It's so soothing. You just put on, like, if you listen to podcasts or music or whatever. I spend hours out there. But yeah, so I did that. I learned how to knit. I tried to like better myself, but then I realized very early in, I was like, nah, I don't really feel like doing all that. I just kind of want to veg out. And I lucked out because I had what were we calling them back then? Pods, right? Our little pods of people.
Oh, yes. Our little safety pod. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a decent pod. So I didn't really miss like anything. And LA was locked down for, I think, before a lot of people and longer than a lot of people. And so it was just, we got used to that. And that was it. And then I didn't intend on having a whole nother year added on to my, not working, but
yeah,
it sort of worked out that way. I was like, okay.
Picking up all these hobbies like gardening, knitting. I also picked up a knitting hobby.
Did you? What'd you make? Anything?
So I've made I did an infinity scarf. I made a couple hats.
Well, I made an infinity scarf because I didn't know what else to call it.
It was a scarf that never ended until I sewed the ends of it together. But I took a class because I was like, I don't know if this is something that you're into, or you just like start a hobby and then you're like, okay, I now know how to do that. But like, is it my passion? Okay, never. I have like a whole pile of like knitting needles.
Oh my God, are we the same person?
We might be.
Yeah, I bought like $700 worth of yarn and used none of it. I was I'm over it.
Yep, I got the yarn. I got every needle in every gauge. I got like I got like a little container to like organize it all, and it's like buried. Yep. Do you start a lot of hobbies and then just like decide it's not for you and move on?
I think I start a lot. Like I feel like my friends laughingly at one point called me a Roman candle because I burn so hot when I'm excited about something, and then it just like fizzles out. So when I do stick with it, like the gardening thing has been probably one of the staying ones. Yeah, I get very excited when I love something right away. And I think that goes for everything, whether it be hobbies, food, television show, what humans, like you meet someone, you're like, oh my God. And then I hate that person. So yeah, it's just every single thing I tend to, I don't know if it has, I don't do astrology, but I feel like maybe it has, it's a very like burn hot and drop quickly.
What is your sign?
Scorpio. Which is, I think, crazy people, which I think is what, yep.
I feel like I ask people that sometimes. I'm like, well, what are you? If you're not a Virgo, I don't know what it is.
Exactly.
I only know my own. I
only know that mine is like ragey and jealous and, a lot of emotion, I guess.
Yeah. I'm like perfectionist where I like am anal retentive and I'm like, I am like that. And I hate that I'm like that because I like to pretend that I'm like this free spirit, everything's fine, but really inside I'm like, but did the thing line up? Is the symmetry okay? That I can like drive myself crazy. Okay, so having all this time off, downtime, off social media, picking up these new hobbies, did you have any weird feelings about not being on
Mm.
television in terms of like an identity crisis?
I
Did you
thought I
ever go through
would.
that?
I genuinely, like, if you would have told me, I don't want to say my last stuff was what, the finals of 2019. So I already knew that I wanted to leave during that period. So, but if you told me like maybe at the beginning of those playoffs, perhaps, or maybe mid-season, that hey, you're not going to do TV in a couple years at all, and I would have been like, well, how will I, what, well, who will I be? Like, what does it mean? And so yeah, but I didn't. And it
That's
was, I don't know,
nice.
it's because if like for me doing the NBA at that level, like doing the fun, that was sort of that was a moment for me. And I did
Mhm.
it. And I'm like, okay, maybe because I did that, I was very calm and I didn't miss it. I think I just didn't miss, well, there was no drama in my life. Like I went from just sort of some garbage people kind of making crap for everybody else to like no garbage people in my life at all. And that was such a nice, peaceful way to be that I maybe that's why I didn't miss it. It was
Yeah.
weird. Like, I don't know. I thought I would. I really did think I'd miss it more than I did.
You have got, I mean, you've done everything in
Well,
television pretty much.
except for late night. Isn't it funny how all of us are like, I would love my own late night show?
But no, I know. I mean, I certainly have. Oh, I felt that way when I first got into television. I was like, that's what I want to do. And then I was like,
Mhm.
okay, maybe daytime or like, I still like that still is a thing that like kind of nags at me a little bit. What, when you were doing your show for NBC, what was that experience like for you? Because
Which
as an
the
outsider,
entertainment stuff or the
when you were the sports one.
oh, this, yeah. Well, well, first I loved, it was nice to be wanted, but like another network to come along and sort of court you in a way was like, oh wow, this feels great. And it would have been, I think it would have been a much more pleasant experience. I just think, again, I think this happens probably more times than it doesn't. You get too many cooks in the kitchen,
Mhm.
and somehow that one cook is louder than everybody else, whether it be by title or what have you. And they kind of just come in and crap all over what was the original vision and idea. And I think that's really, they were like, hey, you're gonna pick your host, and we talked about it. I knew who, and then they went with some dude that, like, I don't think he and I could have gotten along worse. And
Yeah.
I was just sort of like, what happened here? Like, what's the deal? But it was nice. I got to live in New York. I got to do Access Hollywood, which was also a hell of a learning experience. It was my first office. I'd never have to, ESPN has cubicles. So
Mhm.
it doesn't matter how big time you are. But like having your own office, and they gave me an assistant, which to this day is
Oh,
one of my
that's
closest friends. Oh
nice.
yeah, I had nothing for her to do. I was like, do you want to just hang out with me and go to dinner? Like, I don't know. Got nothing. There's nothing in my life that needs another person to help me do. But it was good. It was nice to, and it was also nice to leave, because sometimes when you leave somewhere that they like, oh, maybe we probably do want you back. So let's do this. And it was good. Overall, it
Sure.
was a good experience. I've learned to like, well, you don't want to live through life being a bitter asshole, because nobody likes that. But
Yeah,
more
it's
importantly,
exhausting.
I'm trying to take like the bigger sum of all these experiences, because sometimes I think we focus on like that one person who ruined it, and then it's like, no, that was actually a lot of cool things happened during that period. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to focus more on these days, which is not always easy, but
Yeah. Oh my God. Listen, tell me about it. Tell me about it,
it's hard.
girlfriend. It is hard. It is hard because and some days you're like, no, that guy was a mother.
Yeah,
But
totally. Totally. I'm like, oh, their failures hit. Oh, great, karma. And then karma, and I still stupidly believe in karma. So we'll
oh,
see.
I 100% believe in
Why does it
karma.
take
I am
so
a
long though? Why?
I know, because you really want to see that payoff. I want to be around for the payoff. Can I be a fly on the wall
Yes.
for the payoff?
You want to be around for, that's the thing. I don't want to miss that
Please.
part.
No, no, no. Please let me in on that part. Because yeah, when I was watching you, when you left ESPN, you were over at NBC, and you were doing the crossover. To me, that seemed like it was just like the dream job. I was like, Beadle is doing it. Like that's what I wanted to do. What are some things that you would have done differently, or an
Ooh,
instance of doing a show like that, to just like rebuild a show like that around a woman covering
man.
sports, adding in some entertainment to make it work? Because a lot of times they get canceled.
Always.
Why?
Always.
Why? Why? Why?
I think, because I think, and I can be honest enough to say, like, it wasn't the best show on TV, but it wasn't the worst show on TV. And I do think a lot of times, and it's not to say that men in power are always going to pick other men, but for the 99% of our lives, everyone that's in charge of picking shows and making television, they're men, right? And so if it's between me, the loud, obnoxious chick that always has an opinion on everything, and this guy who's like schmoozy McSchmooze schmooze, and like, I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna always lose that battle, and I never was good at that. I never played the game, probably the way you're supposed to extend your career as long as possible. But honestly, like, I mean, even now on sort of the national scale, if you look at like whether it be late night, whatever, it's predominantly still men.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's because there's this weird, dumb idea that like men are funnier. No, there are funnier women, there are funnier men. It doesn't matter. It's just a very weird thing. I think I would have stuck to my, I mean, look, I only stuck to my guns as much as I could. I fought as much as I could, but at the end of the day, they put you out there with someone. What am I going to do? Yeah. So I don't even know, to be honest, what I would do differently. It'd be nice to sort of find ourselves in a situation with more women from the top down, so we could sort of work together and do what we want to do. But it's slow. It's a very slow moving process.
It feels like disheartening when, like, whether it was, you know, your show going through that, to like seeing Chelsea Handler doing her show, to the people that have stepped in after her and like, it doesn't work, to like this knee-jerk reaction to, oh, this thing isn't the exact thing right away, instead of like, let some shit marinate, let something become great. Like, it doesn't have, like, you can't assume the first season of something is going to be great when you're trying something new, giving somebody a new opportunity for like that person to even figure out what, like, for the host to figure out their role now in that world. And it sucks because now there's almost like this insane pressure of like, if you are, you know, man or woman, you get in that spot, it's like, well, you better hope everyone likes every little bit of the show immediately, or it's going to get yanked. And now it's this failure, and it sucks. It's so annoying.
It's like I when we started Sports Nation, it was a vehicle for Colin Cowherd, and it was a bunch of us degenerates, sort of fate like stepped in and put us all together. Now, if we had gone by the normal rules of what makes a show, what doesn't, that show would have been canceled. Like, it would have been canceled in the first 3 months. We were doing dumb stuff. Our theory was like, just try everything once. Maybe it works. Maybe, who knows? We don't know. That's the whole point. Right. And they did. It was weird because at that time, and I do think that there was a, I don't want to say better, but it was a better regime in place at the time that was sort of letting people breathe a little bit more. I don't feel like at that time that sort of cutthroat, everyone's losing their jobs every other week vibe was over everybody still. Because that's a huge part of it now. Like there are very few jobs. There are so many cutbacks, and like, you know, that if you make one misstep, maybe you're out. And then what are you going to go do? There aren't a ton of jobs available. So I get the panic vibe, but you're right. Like, the reason I always point to TNT, and I think we all know this, that's the NBA show. It's the greatest thing on television. I don't care what anybody says about any studio show anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's because they have freedom to just be themselves, and they've been allowed to marinate for what, 2 decades? Like, no one's bothering them. And then if they are bothering them, the people in the back are sticking up for them and letting them do their thing while they deal with the garbage in the back. And that's a tough thing to find too.
100%. I'm sure there's been a million people trying to put you in a box your entire career. What are some of the instances of people either telling you to have less opinions or do X, Y, or Z to try to make you the broadcaster that they wanted you to be?
You know, I will say this. I've been, to my face, it has not happened, really. To be
That's
honest.
nice.
Like, I should say that.
Okay.
To think it hasn't happened behind, of course, I'm sure it has. I think when I blasted the NFL, which was funny to me because I had been vocal against the NFL like for a long, long time, you know, dating back for a while, because they've done enough stuff to piss people off. And for some reason, the one morning I'm like, I'm not watching. I'm not going to watch ever again. That was the one that stuck. It was weird because I had already not been watching at that point for an entire season. So whatever. But again, I don't regret it. Like, it's stupid. Who gives a shit if some 40-something-year-old chick's not going to watch football? What does that matter? But because of the like sort of incestual relationship between networks and leagues and what have you, it's funny what will be the thing that pisses people off. Like, I didn't think that would be the thing that would piss people off, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think for the most part, people who have hired me knowing what was coming. Not at the beginning, because at the beginning I didn't even know what I was doing. But like since then, I think you either are gonna hire me because you want to, or you're gonna stay away. There's no in between.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing because I feel like obviously men have far more leeway with being able to talk a little shit, be opinionated, get into arguments, whether it's with players, with whatever. But
can you imagine? Can you imagine
right?
physically threatening a player on national television and not only not being punished, being glorified and rewarded repeatedly?
It's nuts. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
I know. It is such an insane. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. But, I will say, I mean, from me being in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and seeing Michelle Beadle doing Sports Nation, I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. This is great.
I know. I wanted you to come and like we do some dumb thing together. I was like, let's do something stupid.
I know. And then I thought there was maybe going to be a moment that you were going to join WWE. Were there ever conversations about that happening?
I had talked to like a couple people, just sort of like casually. I mean, I don't think anything ever was formal. It was just sort of like an gauging an interest type thing. And I've never been against doing anything, right? Like I've always said I'll do it once. If I don't want to do it again, I won't do it again. That's all that's all I know. And so I was always open to anything. I mean, to this day, I feel like I'm starting my career over again. It's like I'm open to pretty much anything, I don't want to interview the Kardashians. Other than that, I'm pretty open to like whatever it is you want me to do. So yeah, it was like, but very cash, like nothing that I think ever really probably would have turned into anything.
Right.
Which would have been awesome.
As I was like sitting down, like getting ready for this interview and like rattling off the million different jobs you have held, from like Travel Channel, Discovery, obviously covering sports, to like bull riding, like you have done everything. What's something that you would love to go back and revisit?
Ooh, that's a good question. The funny thing about the Travel Channel show is if you say I worked for the Travel Channel, you're like, oh my God, where did you go? Like, and I didn't. It was like their one and only sort of attempt at a dating show. We shot it all in Miami, which was my 1 year of living there. And that was interesting, but I would love to do something for one of the Discovery channels again, because I think what they do these days is so interesting. Like, I like the idea of traveling. I think the thing that's taken place of we all have our late night show dreams is now we all have our like Anthony Bourdain-esque type show dreams. It's like,
I like food. I like to travel. Let me go. I'll do it.
I know, right? I love asking questions. I like learning things. I love food. So for me, it's a no brainer, and that seems to be sort of the network of television channels that specializes in that world. So yeah, I feel like I'd want to go back and do that. Do I want to do another dating show? No, absolutely I do not. Unless I do wish I watch all these garbage shows, right? Like Temptation Island and Love Island or whatever. And it's, this beautiful.
Have you been watching Love is Blind and
the Ultimatum? Dead. Ultimatum killed me. I was like, what am I watching?
I know.
Oh, and what are Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey? What's happening right now? Who are y'all? And so I think I want some of those shows to exist, but I want it to be people like in my age bracket. Like, maybe they've been divorced or whatever, or maybe they never got married. That to me would be so fascinating to watch.
Why does that not already exist? I mean, I don't need to see a 22-year-old being like, I'm getting married now and you've got to give me kids now. It's like, you need to calm down first of all.
Like, you sound stupid.
All of your holes. Shut them all up.
Because they look so, at least with the island ones, everyone looks amazing in a bikini. Fine, whatever. I get the sex sells part of it. But we also, I think those of us that watch that stuff, I'm not watching for bodies. I'm watching because of the dumb shit that these people say. I get invested in like, how dumb are you? And so people in like 30s, 40s, 50s, oh my God, I would watch that in a second.
I think that's a great idea. People that have like already been burned by previous relationships. They've gone through a nasty divorce. They've got like piles and piles of child support. Let's get into that show.
You're going to have that cheesy guy who thinks he's smooth, but now you got a bunch of cynical women that are like, no, bro, step away.
Also, like, think how I couldn't imagine if I was not with John and had to like date someone else and
Oh,
like learn somebody else. I'm like, oh my God, I'm used to all of his bullshit and his quirks. Like
right.
I don't want to learn somebody else's.
No, that's the biggest, like my best friends, but one's been married for 20 something years. The other one, I think maybe 10, but that's her big, the one with the 20 something is like, if he dies, I'll never date again. And I'm always like, stop. First of all, you don't know that. You can't say that. I mean, and
Yeah.
she'll be like, no, can you imagine exactly that? Like, I have to like relearn something and like laugh
Uh-uh.
at stupid. I'm like, no, you don't have to do any of those things. But like, but it would be kind of funny to watch. I want to watch that show. I want someone to make that show.
That's it.
Please.
Well, listen, I think that we get it ready. We drop a little pitch. We send over a one sheeter and let's get this
Yes.
party rolling because
Come on.
I am heavily invested.
Right? We're in this moment of inclusivity. Well, put in some oldies. Let's make this happen. Do this.
Okay, so you're back in the podcast world. What did I
Yeah.
miss? Which what a great, I love this.
What even is it?
What did you miss?
I missed a lot. I mean, well, I didn't watch sports for a big chunk of it, just purposely like stayed away. Well, because NBA was my favorite. And then that next following season was the bubble. And to me, that never counted. That was just, might as well not have the season. And so I just sort of stayed away, which was kind of cool to do. You realize like, without watching sports as much as I think we do these days, like all of a sudden my conversations were different. I was just like, oh, I don't even know what's happening in the world right now. But I missed a little bit. Eventually it hit me that I was like, I kind of miss talking about some of this, like whether it be the dumb stuff that these guys do, like Ben Simmons is such a stupidly ridiculous topic, or like some of the serious stuff, like Deshaun Watson. Like I did miss having some sort of a room to talk into like that. But that didn't come along until, I mean, maybe a year ago. That's when I was like, maybe I could go back to work. It sounds like it's probably a good time. But that was it. And I miss sort of the camaraderie you have when you have like a regular job and you've got the people you love working with and you see them every day or whatever. And I did miss that a little bit too, because I only had my bubble. I was like, oh, I'm sick of y'all's faces.
I know it's funny because even like, I mean, with me doing this show, I do a serious show.
Yeah.
I do a thing with NHL Network. I don't hang out with any of these people in real life. I've only met a few of them in real life. Otherwise, it's like you're a person on my Zoom chat and
So weird, isn't
we get
it?
to hang out. Yeah, I know. I do miss that. Like going in, seeing people, being able to like bullshit in real life.
Yeah.
I miss that aspect so
Or even
much.
just having like, I was thinking about the other day, I have these tickets, right, to like New Kids on the Block, but my two friends
Hell yeah.
here are going to be out of town. And all of a sudden, like in the old days, you'd be like, cool, I'll just invite a couple of the kids from work and da-da-da. And I was like, I don't have any people from work here. Nobody lives here. And that was when you realize like, oh, it's very different. It's a mixed bag because on the one hand, it's kind of nice not having to go to an office every day. But then in moments like that, you're like, the social part of that was nice. Like I miss that a little bit.
I know. Same. As much as I love to be a recluse sometimes, I'm like, but on my own terms. Can I hang out sometimes?
Exactly. Like I'll
Please,
hang out the
please.
days I want to hang out.
Yeah. Otherwise, kick rocks. What makes a podcast work? Everybody has a podcast. Everyone's got a space for it. Are there ones that you listen to or things that you like? What do you think about before you go in to do one of your shows?
It's like, I think for me, well, because the podcast that I listen to most, especially before doing any of this, I always listen to a lot of the history ones, like the American history, or, they're like 4 or 5 parters where you learn things, or like business wars where you learn about Levi's versus Guess. I don't know why. I'm fascinated by like origin stories, I guess. And so those obviously aren't podcasts that any of us are doing. We're doing like personality, conversation driven podcasts. And I was like, I don't think I've listened to a ton of those. So I started to go in there and, I have a couple friends, Zach Harper and Amin Al-Hassan. They do like this movie one, Cinephobe, and it's ridiculous. And they're both so dumb and funny and lovely. And I liked that. Here's my one thing. This is what I won't do. And I learned this. I can't do like the 3-hour podcast. I can't. What are we doing?
I actually think those should be illegal. What are you doing? I mean, I understand people are listening to these 3-hour long podcasts, but like,
but no,
no,
I don't even watch movies that are more than an hour and a half.
I want 90-minute movies. Let's bring those back. 3-hour movies. I don't have time for that shit.
Who wants that? It's got to be so epic. And more times than not, it's not. And you're like, oh, yeah. The 3-hour podcast is it's a special breed of person that can A, do that, or B, wants to do that. I won't do those. I like the like sort of short, sweet, funny. Wait, what? I was listening to one the other day. I didn't even know who this person was, and I was like, oh, they had like a fun personality. But I basically am that person that goes on like Spotify or Wondery, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, listen, and just sort of explore, which is weird because I listen to a lot of sports talk. Like that's my probably the thing I listen to the most, whether it be in the car or gardening, what have you. And so that's the thing. I don't know what makes any of this stuff. I have no idea. I suppose, much like any other sort of media consumption, it's like, well, do you like the people that are delivering it? I think that's
Mhm.
important. And then if it's not that, or plus that is the content. But it's just it's a bizarre. You're right. We all have one of these. Like it's a very funny thing.
I
I
know.
don't
Well,
know.
even when you and I were talking, I was like, I want you to come on and do my podcast. And you're like, yes, and you must do mine. That's how the
Yes.
conversations are. Like, yes, of course. That's how it
It's
works. We
so
all do each
funny.
other's shows.
I know, and then you tell me, hey, Joe Rogan's podcast is the biggest podcast in America. So I listened to it for 5 minutes. I was like, it ain't for me. That's not for
I
me.
know. I
But I
know.
can't explain why everyone loves it. Like, I don't know.
Also, can I just have I just want that payday,
Holy
please, for
shit.
the love
I'll
of
take a half of
God.
that payday.
I'll take, yeah, give me a fraction of that, and I'm still like, I'm happy, I'm good.
Because let's be
But
honest, it's wasted on Joe. His fashion set. Come on. We
I
could do so much
know,
better with that money.
I
Let us
know.
try.
There's a lot of rich people that end up in very interesting situations. You're like, really? Like Elon Musk buying Twitter? Like that's what you're spending your money on?
Thank you.
What's
If I have 44
happening?
extra $billion sitting around, guess who's not buying Twitter? I
Yeah,
don't give a
guess
shit
who's
about
going
Twitter.
to Mars instead? Well, I guess he's
Right?
doing that anyways, but
Oh, I'm gonna
yeah.
do some petty stuff, and then I'm gonna do some cool stuff. Like that's what I'm gonna do. But
Yeah.
although I guess you could put buying Twitter under petty, maybe for him. So maybe
Yeah,
maybe he's more
maybe
like us than we know. I don't know.
maybe there's more to the Twitter game. I hope he adds the edit button. That's
I
all I
swear.
can say.
Like,
Please,
what
for
do
the
you do with
love of
Twitter?
God.
I don't.
I don't know. I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. It's yeah, I don't get it. It's not
I
for
don't
me.
get it either.
Um, let's talk about your family. What's your
Oh God.
relationship like with your family? You've got two younger siblings, right? A brother and a
Yes.
sister. What's your
Yeah.
relationship like with them?
So my brother is in LA. So when I told him I was moving back to Texas, because he always has wanted to sort of make his way back to Dallas, and he will eventually, just not right now. But
Is your brother a very handsome man? I feel like he would be.
he's like, yeah, I think he is. He's like I mean, I'm not going to tell him that. I told him he's a stupid asshole and he's gross, but that's just between he and I. No, yeah, and he's a very good person. And I say that 100%. Because I will just in the same breath tell you, I haven't even spoken to my sister in like probably 15, 20 years, maybe. Yeah, we
Oh,
don't speak. It's like there's like three siblings, but really just Robert and I, and we don't really associate with her. She's very
what
different from
happened?
us. Yeah, I guess it's just the boring cliche black sheep. And it never mended itself. Like it was, I think there were attempts through our earlier adult life, but eventually I'm a very sort of, I barely ever give people second chances. That's sort of my growth. But I tried, and we're just two very different people. And I think she was the middle kid. And I think growing up, like I was like an overachiever nerd. I get why she didn't like me when we were younger. I mean, I get that. That's very, but to also carry it all into adulthood and still be angry is like, I don't really get that. I stopped getting it after a while. And it
Yeah.
wasn't worth it. And I used to say, like, look, life is too short. You can't pick your family, but I sure as hell don't have to hang out with them. And so that was easy. That was one of the
Is
easier
she
decisions.
close with your parents, or is
Not
it
my
just?
mom, just my
Oh
dad.
my
Yeah, just my
gosh.
my dad is like Switzerland though in that regard. Although I guess we
Okay.
can't even say that anymore technically. But yeah, my dad is like he's very neutral. He's very sort of optimistic in the sense that he thinks just, one day it'll be fine. I'm like, maybe, but probably not. No.
Yeah.
But my
Oh
brother's
my.
awesome. My brother and I are very similar, very sarcastic, uh, like just our senses of humor are gross and immature, and we get along in that regard, which is good.
What about your mom? I mean, it's in your Wikipedia, so I don't know how
Mm.
true this is, but your relationship with your mom, that she didn't know English, and you
No,
guys, like, she was like your best friend
that's in
growing.
my Wikipedia. I gotta look up
Yes,
my
that's in
Wikipedia. That's
your Wikipedia.
freaking
Yeah.
weird. Who
Isn't
writes
that
that?
weird? I know it's like an odd little tidbit, but I was like, I'm gonna take that.
Huh.
Plus, it's Mother's Day's coming up. We'll give a
It's
little mom shout
a
out.
great point. It's a great, yeah, no, she is a full born and raised in Rome, Italy, uh, firecracker. I mean, she's getting older now and she's kind of starting to do that thing our parents do where it's like, okay, I kind of need to be around and take care of you a little bit. But yeah, growing up, she's the reason I think I've always been so vocal and opinionated because I always saw her doing it. And she got away with it a little more because of her accent. So I think now in hindsight, people didn't even know what she was saying. So she got away with so much mean crap. But yeah, it's like it's good to be here. I mean, she was my best friend. Like we still talk pretty much every day, and she's 10 miles away from me at this point. But and it was hard. And I think we've had like I think the last 5 years or whatever politically was sort of an interesting time for families across the world, especially here. And so yeah, there was a stretch there where I was sort of isolated from everyone, and I didn't talk that much. It was when Leroy died that I was like going home, and we all sort of just, that was it. We're like, this is stupid. Let's all just be fine. We don't need to talk about certain topics, and we'll all be better off for it. Boom, done. but but it's good. And like she's a tough broad. She had a shitty childhood and shitty growing up. She was a hippie when my dad was getting off a naval ship in Gaeta, Italy, and she just was like picked him out. She didn't speak English, he didn't speak Italian. Ew, 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 ew. And then I was born. So
the language of love.
Oh, it grosses me out. Because especially when you know your parents now and you're like, you guys don't even touch each other.
God.
Like, how is that possible?
My parents have been split since I was like 4. I could not. It's so funny. So when we moved to Cincinnati, my mom and my dad were both here, all under one roof. And my mom, we have one spare bedroom. My mom kept begging my dad, just let me sleep in there with you. And he was like, get away from me. It was not happening. I'm like, you guys haven't been together for like 31 years. Like, maybe revisit it. I don't know. Give it a shot. I mean, not under my roof, but like,
no, yeah, wait, get a motel,
not
get a
around
hotel,
here.
get a car. I don't care. Go away. Like, no, I couldn't imagine. Well, my parents got divorced when I was 18 and then remarried each other like 4 years later. But I was against it. I was like, yo, have we learned nothing from what y'all did the first time?
Back this up. How did this happen? How did they rekindle? That's
I don't
fascinating.
know. I remember because I had just left for Austin for UT, and they were getting divorced. And my brother was still here, and my sister lived with my dad. My brother lived with my mom. And I remember going to the courtroom and stuff for the divorce proceedings. And I'm a very emotional mix of the two, right? Like on the one hand, I can be very sort of cold and compartmentalizing and businesslike, but I can also be a little irrational, reactionary, and blah. So it's there's never know which one's coming. And so I remember watching this all happen, and my dad was very like, and I'm just like, what a dick. Like, this is awful. Because I was 18. So I was very aware of what was going on. And then I remember being in UT, and like, I knew that they were hanging out again, and they were going to like Carrabba's for date nights and stuff. And they never went on a date for as long as I was around, like 18 years. Never saw like flowers. I never saw like a friendship. They were just how I thought married people were. And when she told me this, I'm like, who? You're going with dad? And she's like, yeah. And then I remember one week she goes, what are you doing Wednesday? Your dad and I are going to get married if you could come down. And I'm like, what? Why are y'all doing this?
My gosh.
I mean, look, I love both of them to death, but they are the reason why all 3 Beadle kids are not married. There's definitely a reason for that.
So like, I've always been kind of fascinated by people whose parents split when you're older. Like, I was so young that I knew no better. I truly left the whole thing fairly unscathed. But I feel like when you're like in your teens to like early 20s, like that's got to rattle you to your core.
For me, it was always like, and I'm sure our memories are a little distorted, right? But in my memory, I just remember them fighting a lot. Like, I remember we would go on vacations and he would be working. So we'd go with my mom. We went, because of the whole Italian thing, we would go to Europe like most of the summers, and we'd be gone for like 3 months. And so I just never remember looking at them thinking, yeah, this is what it's all about. This is the dream. I think it was the exact opposite. So when they did say they were getting divorced, I was like, oh, finally, like, good Lord, it took so long. But, and that's why the getting reconnected was like, what? But then again, I say that I also could never even imagine them with other people. So it's almost just like well, they're stuck with each other now.
So how is the marriage a second time around?
They're just they're much more my dad's long been retired as well, so he like bought a ranch and he just stays busy all day and does all that. My mom's got her dog and like hangs out, and she used to go back and forth to Italy, but since all of this has happened, she's just been here. And they're civil, like they're actually much nicer to each other. They seem to actually have conversations. It's so much better. It's like I don't mind it. This turned out better than I thought it would.
Crazy.
I just was like, this is not a good idea.
Well, good for them. Well, you know what? You know what? Your mom probably was like, I don't want to learn some other guy's problems again. I already know his. Let's keep it coming.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
Meet me back at the altar.
No, there would have been a disaster for her to date another human being. A disaster.
Did she date anybody in between?
No. And I remember, I don't remember the girl's name, but I remember getting wind that some girl I went to high school with was trying to set up our other person that we went to high school with, like single mom with my dad. And again, here comes the irrational reactionary side. I remember calling that house to speak to that girl's mom and saying something along the lines of, and by the way, I was young in my defense, but I was like, you need to worry about your whore daughter and worry about setting up my dad with your and I'll never forget, like, hanging up the phone
like
going,
yanked my headphones out laughing at that.
At the time, seemed like the right thing to do. To defend the shield. It's the family.
Yeah, exactly. Defend that family crest. Back it
even
up,
if it was dysfunctional. Still, I had to save it. Yeah, that was the line. That I don't think if he did, I don't know about it. Put it that way. I have no idea if he ever did.
So you seeing your parents and witnessing that made all of the Beadle children decide we don't want to get married. None of you guys have been married.
None of us have been married. None of us have had kids. Nothing. Like it's pretty shocking. I think the marriage thing, especially because 3, I mean, you think 1.
Right.
And my brother's been like, at least try it. My brother's been in a relationship for like 10 years. So I mean, it's the next best thing. But yeah, I think there's this thing about like, nah, we don't really need it. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, we're also okay. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much pressure.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, there is a ton of pressure for sure that I mean, even just having a conversation like this, but at the same time, I don't know. No one really cares anymore, right? It's like, do whatever you want. Who cares?
Just be happy. Whatever that is.
100%.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. Whatever the hell that is.
And by the way, less paperwork, the better. We don't need all that.
Oh my God. Right. I know. It's so funny. John and I are just like, I mean, all of our stuff is so intertwined that we're like, well, I'll see you at the grave, baby. See you there.
One way or the other. I'm not doing all this paperwork again. That's awesome. That's about right.
So to circle back to some other sports things really quickly, and it is disjointed considering the flow of this conversation has just been a lot of fun, but to circle out before we close out, the status of your friendship or lack thereof with one LeBron James.
We're best friends. He comes over and brushes my hair. I will say this about that. Of course I took it personally. It was personal. Like he wanted to be fired and tried to do that. And has had his people have been very rude to me, like whatever. But then I found out after the fact, like when all this sort of came out, I would get messages or I would get like texts or video from people being like exact same, like that kind of shit was happening to them too. Like he was super petty and he would try to have some sort of an effect, whether it be small, but whatever, like just an effect. It's almost like to exhibit your power, I guess. Right. And look, no one's taking that away. I'll tell you, he's one of the most powerful people in that whole world. But that was never in question, which is why one has to wonder when you have that much power and you're that large of an entity, why are you sweating the small shit? 100%. Who cares what any of us say, honestly?
So what exactly went down that burned him up?
The only thing that would make, it is the only thing because I made fun of the decision. And I was one of about a bazillion people that did.
Everybody made fun of the decision. I'm taking my talents to Miami. I mean, it was the meme before we even had memes.
It was hilarious. And I remember I got this was a long time ago, I guess, when I followed him, and I got a DM that was like, why are you so mean to me on television? And I just sort of laughed it off. I didn't even think about it. Right. I was like, and then, fast forward, we're at the Olympics. And I remember people were like sending messages like, hey, they're doing this thing. And I never went. Like LeBron and all these people were having parties and stuff in London. And I never went to any of this stuff. That has literally been my only sort of 2 even overlaps in life with that person. That's it. Now, I've been vocal because my job entailed opinions on television, and I've never really cared for the way he conducts himself in most things. Like, I
Mhm.
find it to be very fraudulent and passive aggressive, which is not my cup of tea. But my God, I'm so far from the only one that thinks I'm like one of a
Yeah.
million people who thought that. So I think he's just a very successful, very wealthy man who still sweats dumb stuff. And that's just that simple. And it's
Oh my
unfortunate
God.
because my goodness, if I was him, I wouldn't even hear the voices.
What was like, how bothered did this make you? And what was like your stress level having somebody of such a high position coming for you like that? Like,
Well,
that's
it
pretty
wasn't, I
crazy.
didn't even care because at that point, like when I found out that it had happened, I was already mentally like checked out because he was the smaller of like the things that was going on in house, right? There were people
Mhm.
like there was people that were just using sort of the New York Post or what have you as their lying punching bags to sort of paint me in a bad light. And that to me was way more stressful because people would read that and people would get these
Right.
ideas that like somehow I'm difficult or I was hard to work with, and which couldn't have been more hilariously ironic considering the source that was giving them this information. And so, and I think what bothered me the most was I was like, the idea that Adam Silver of all people must have thought like, oh, she doesn't like basketball and she's hard to work. And that pissed me off. That for me was way more of an angering situation than like anything
Mhm.
else that I found out about after the fact. So yeah, I was checked out regardless. I was like, no one, because I wouldn't have been, but no one really had anyone's back. And that I think that's such a crap way to go about life. Like if you work
Yeah.
somewhere and you like the people you work with, you want to feel like we were a family, like, Chauncey, Jalen, Paul, and then everyone that worked on that show. But it was like we were against the world. And it was just, why? We're all
Yeah.
doing the same crap. Like, it was exhausting. Hence I was so at peace for the 2 years following.
Honestly, like, you know what? How about everyone lose my number and leave me alone for a
Have
second?
fun.
Thank you so much. What is the craziest thing that you read about yourself in some of these
Oh
articles?
God. Well, it was more like it would be, Michelle doesn't doesn't know her information, and being difficult. That bothered me because on my shittiest day, I pride myself on not being an asshole at work. Like I don't,
Mhm.
especially with the people that make the shows happen. My battles have always been up the ladder. They've always been with like executives or suits or what have you, or even maybe another on-air person. I have never been the person that walks in your room and acts like an asshole. It's just something I very much hold dear to heart. And to like read that, I could have punched through a cement wall. I was
Yeah.
so angry and I knew where it was all coming from, which made it even more angering because I knew that person was an asshole. And so I was just like, how is this being allowed to happen? Like how, and
Yeah.
I never addressed it because I didn't want to wade into the cesspool, but at the
Mhm.
same time, it's very hard to like be quiet and not say anything. You can't
That is
win.
like, no, you can't win with something like that. And that,
Mm-mm.
it's funny. I remember being told once that there were rumors that I was difficult to work with. And I was like, what?
You're like,
Me?
oh, is that right? You're
Like, what are
right.
you talking about? Like, it was so out of left field. And it's funny because when that was told to me, it was very early on to John and I dating. And we kept our stuff
Interesting.
under wraps for about 6 months, I would say, before
Yeah, you
people like
did.
knew. Yeah, people did not know. And then once people found out, it was like this rumor was circulating. And I feel like people were trying to like pin something on me to like give me a little bit of shit for
Right?
whatever reason. I remember hearing that and I was like, what?
And you know what's
Like,
great about that? It's a female thing too.
yeah.
Because I can list you 20 dudes right now that are shitholes to work with. And we hear about it and we've heard the rumors, and it has
Yeah,
never once affected them a day in their
I
careers.
know.
It's almost like
Yeah.
it's expected. But for us, she's not what? Even if it's not true, you're like, really? Like that matters to you now. That's a
And
thing.
it's crazy too, because even with it, like, I know in like my heart, in my core, that I'm like, I know that that's just simply not true. And
Yep.
it's such bullshit. But the idea that somebody would try to say that about me, and like, that's what I hang my hat on, is like
Exactly.
being a good person and doing a good job. Like, and not to like be a goody two shoes, but like, I don't want to be a pain in the ass to work with. I want to be good at my job. the last thing I do is like to do this job to be a prick to people, like ever, ever,
Right.
ever. So for someone to say that was like, it felt like such a direct attack. I was
It's
like,
the
how
worst
dare
thing.
you?
To me, it was the worst thing you could say about me. That was
Yeah.
why it angered me so much. The
Yeah.
worst thing. And look, I get it in hindsight now because I would always fight with executives. Of course, they're not going to have my back publicly. So it was like, I was sort of in that regard, I did to myself, but it was just, I was like, go ask any crew member I've ever worked on in any show I've
Yes.
ever done in the history of my life. I will bet anything on it. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But you can't say that. Because if I engage with the New York freaking Post or whoever, I look like a defensive turd.
Yeah.
So there's no winning. And so I just ignored it. And behind
Scream
the scenes,
into a pillow, into the abyss.
and then behind the scenes, I'm like, get me out of here. Like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Release me. Let me go, please.
The worst.
And are you watching any professional wrestling? I know you also took a hiatus from pro wrestling. Where are we
did,
at?
but I checked back in. Well, I started to check out like AEW. I was like, because it's I don't remember the last time WWE had like a legit sort of a competitor, I guess, for lack of a better. I don't know, they're 100% competitor. And I did check in for WrestleMania because I knew Stone Cold was showing up.
Yeah.
Didn't know he was showing up on the second night, and I lost my shit.
You
like,
were there, were you? Did you go? No.
No. I was like, I was just on the couch, like, do, and then all of a sudden the glass broke, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This is the greatest moment. Yeah. So it was fun. It's fun to like it. That's the great thing about wrestling. You know this more than anyone. You can take a long break and come right back. And you're like, yep, I'm good. Let's do this. I know where we are. It's so fun.
Hit me one video package and I am back to where I need to be. Thank you so much.
I just need a couple who are yous and I'm ready to go. Yeah. It's fun in that regard. 100%. So I've liked it.
Yeah. Good old wrestling.
How's John liking it?
He's loving it.
Yeah.
John's having the time of his life. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, obviously for me to see him and see the things that he's been able to do and the way, you know, when he left WWE and this opportunity with AEW, but when he left WWE, that was not that wasn't the opportunity, but AEW wasn't what it is now.
Right.
So he didn't know what he was going to do. He thought he was just going to go wrestle in Japan, maybe pick up some indies. He had no idea. So it's really cool to see him thriving, doing the things that he's doing, to, you know, Samoa Joe now with AEW, CM Punk with AEW, like it's all huge. Of these. Yeah. And then, you know, even the other way to see Cody Rhodes leave AEW and go back to WWE. It's really cool to see everyone just kind of doing what they want, you know, like you're not beholden to have to do one thing. It's really nice. Well, Beadle, it is so good to see you. So fun hanging out with you. Awesome. And I'm going to be texting you for some gardening tips.
Please do. And you have a different climate, so I'll do some research. Don't worry. I'll have good answers for you.
We at least have like humidity here. Like it's not Texas.
Oh, that's good.
But it's at least not the desert. So I feel like things can at least thrive and exist here.
And you live in a cold place. A lot of things will survive if you plant them. Like I learned that this year.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool.
Now, I mean, even now seeing like with spring here, we've got tulips popping up and daffodils and like all things are happening. It's
look
really
at
great.
Us. We're like mature ladies now.
I know. We really are. We sure are.
Oh Lord.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, but you are coming on my podcast, so
yes,
I'll hit you up. Don't worry about that.
We'll be talking.
It's the new world.